everyone, and good evening. Welcome to the Linglobe channel. This time, we'll be bringing you content about preserving the world's languages for the future. Please enjoy it to the end.
Linglobe Voice. Today we're looking at a story of survival and really just incredible resilience that is almost entirely unprecedented in U.S. history.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, we're talking about a nation that literally looked the federal government in the eye, negotiated a treaty, and walked hundreds of miles out of an internment camp right back to their exact ancestral homeland.
Right, which is just staggering. And Linglobe, we are handed the keys to understanding exactly how this worldview operates. We're exploring not just their history, but the mental and, the linguistic architecture that allowed them to survive.
Exactly. And it's important for you listening to realize that we have a bad habit of looking at indigenous history through, like, a pane of museum glass. But this is about a vibrant worldview that actively constructs reality right now.
Yeah, well said. So let's jump in. The first slide in our materials introduces everything, and I have to read this title because it sets a powerful mood. Slide 1 is titled The Diné, a cinematic journey through Navajo language and culture.
And that word cinematic is really intentional there. It tells you immediately that this isn't some dry recitation of dates, It's a comprehensive look at how an entire civilization understands its place in the universe.
Right, and it wastes no time getting to the core of their identity. So slide 2 is titled Diné, the people. And right away, there's a huge distinction we have to talk about.
Yeah, the naming distinction.
Exactly. Globally, almost everyone knows them as the Navajo, but the documentation points out that Navajo is actually a Spanish adaptation. Their actual self-designation is Diné, meaning the people.
Which is a critical starting point. In anthropology, we talk about exonyms and endonyms, right? An exonym is a name given by outsiders, and it almost always carries historical baggage or colonial misunderstandings.
Oh, for sure. It's like having your entire legal status based on some nickname a stranger gave you centuries ago. It just doesn't capture your true essence compared to what you call yourself.
Precisely. An endonym like Dine strips all that baggage away. And speaking of their presence, the text highlights that they are one of the largest Native American nations in the U.S. today. They have this unbroken connection to lands across Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah.
Which is vast. But, here's where my understanding got completely flipped. I always assumed they just sprouted from the desert and had been there since the dawn of time. But slide 3 is titled Origins, the Northern Migration, 1500 CE.
Yeah, it's an epic journey. The documentation outlines that the Dine actually have deep linguistic ties to northern Athabaskan-speaking peoples. So, for context, that means groups whose homelands are way up in the freezing subarctic of Canada and Alaska.
Wait, really? The subarctic? How does a culture survive moving from a frozen tundra to the scorching deserts of the American Southwest?
Well, the key is time. It was a massive, centuries-long southward migration, roughly between 1000 and 1500 CE.
Wow.
Right. It's like 20 generations of people constantly moving, constantly adapting to entirely new ecosystems.
So the state of journeying was literally their permanent state of being for centuries.
Exactly. And when they finally arrived in the Southwest, they began to form kinship ties with Apache peoples. And crucially, they adopted Pueblo agricultural practices.
But I mean, if you adopt the practices of another group, don't you kind of lose your own culture? Like, don't you just become Pueblo?
You'd think so, but that misses the unique genius of the Diné. They observed how the Pueblo grew corn and beans in the arid soil, and they synthesized that knowledge into their own culture.
Right.
They remained entirely Diné, they just became Diné farmers.
That makes total sense. They mastered integration. And that brings us to how they define this homeland. So slide 4 is titled, The Navajo Nation and the Sacred Mountains.
Right, and the physical scale here is immense. The sovereign territory spans over 70,000 square kilometers. For you listening, that's larger than the entire country of Ireland.
It's massive. But the symbolism on their flag and seal is what caught my eye. There's this central triangle representing the 4 sacred mountains that anchor their universe.
Yeah, Blanca Peak, Mount Taylor, the San Francisco Peaks, and Hesperus Mountain. And in their worldview, these aren't just rocks. They are the physical and spiritual pillars holding up their reality.
Like a cosmic perimeter. And the seal also has a rainbow and a Hogan representing divine protection. But then right in the middle, and this blew my mind, it honors agriculture, cattle, sheep, and industrial oil rigs.
Right, oil rigs. It feels like a glaring paradox to outsiders, doesn't it?
Totally. You expect, like, pristine, ancient nature symbols, not industrial drilling.
Yeah, because we tend to trap indigenous cultures in a romanticized past. But this seal shows a living, modern nation acknowledging their ancient roots while pragmatically recognizing the modern economic engines that sustain them today.
Which is a perfect transition to their next huge adaptation. Slide 5 is titled Spanish Contact and the Pastoral Shift, 16th, 18th century.
This was a cataclysmic shift. The text focuses on how Spanish explorers in the 16th century introduced two animals that permanently rewired the Dine way of life, the horse and the sheep.
Right, the horses gave them insane mobility for trade and defense. But the sheep herding really became the absolute bedrock of their economy.
And, we really have to pause and appreciate the profound irony here.
What do you mean?
Well, the Spanish arrived as colonizers, right? But the very tools they brought, horses, sheep, metal, were observed, adopted, and mastered by the Diné.
Ah, I see. They took the tools of the colonizer, but they didn't become the colonizer.
Exactly. They integrated these animals so deeply into their own cosmology that they became foundational to their identity. I mean, you can't imagine modern Navajo culture without sheep, wool, or silver.
It's the ultimate cultural jujitsu. But unfortunately, that success eventually put them on a collision course with U.S. expansion. This brings us to a very grim reality. Slide 6 is titled The Darkest Hour, The Long Walk, 1864.
Yeah. And we need to look at this strictly objectively, as outlined in our sources. The history here has three distinct stages. First, the 1864 removal.
Right, a federally mandated policy by the U.S. military to forcefully remove them. And the military used a scorched earth policy, right?
Yes. They deliberately destroyed crops, slaughtered their vast herds of sheep, and cut down their peach orchards to force a mass surrender through starvation.
God. And that led to stage 2, the march to Bosque Redondo in New Mexico, marked by starvation, exhaustion, disease.
Just a brutal forced march. And the internment camp itself was horrific. Alkaline water, crop failures, constant disease. It was an existential threat.
But then stage 3, the 1868 treaty allowed the survivors to return home. Our documentation calls this event a testament to absolute resilience.
And that's not hyperbole. For the leadership to negotiate a treaty from inside a camp that allowed them to return to their actual ancestral homeland within those 4 sacred mountains is nearly unprecedented in American history.
They just rebuild everything from the ashes, and part of what allowed them to maintain their identity through all that trauma is their language. So let's get into that. Slide 7 is titled Linguistic Architecture, the Mechanics of Navajo.
Language is really the structural framework of thought itself. We know it's part of the Diné language family. But the phonetics are incredibly intense.
Yeah, the text lists syllabic weight, rich affixation, sharp glottalized consonants, and distinctive nasal vowels.
Right, so glottalized consonants mean you abruptly stop airflow deep in your throat to create a sharp popping sound. And nasal vowels mean the air flows through your nose.
It sounds so precise. But the polysynthetic structure is what really lost me for a second. It says that instead of separate words for subject, object, and tense, they are locked into a single, heavily affixed verb structure.
It's fascinating, right? In English, we build sentences linearly, block by block. I will give the book to him. But in Navajo, that entire thought is compressed into one incredibly complex verb.
Okay, so it's like a computer zip file. You just unpack this one verb and it has the who, what, when, and how all inside it.
That's a great analogy. Or like a piece of clockwork machinery. Every prefix and suffix has to be perfectly placed. If you miss one tiny glottal stop or pitch, the entire sentence shifts meaning.
Which makes writing it down sound impossible, but they solved that. Slide 8 is titled Orthography, Writing the Diné Voice.
Yeah, because Navajo was historically an oral language, right? But as they interacted more with the U.S., they needed a standardized written form.
And they just adapted the Latin alphabet, right? Using very specific diacritics, like they use apostrophes for those glottal stops we just talked about.
Exactly. And they use accents to denote tone, because Navajo is a tonal language. A change in pitch completely alters the dictionary meaning of a word, kind of like in Mandarin.
Oh, interesting. And they use hooks, or ogonex, for the nasalized vowels. Like the word for hello, yate. It is just bristling with apostrophes and accents.
It looks intimidating,
Right.
but the written form is just trying to be a perfectly faithful mirror to the spoken complexity. And the second example we have is Hozhó, which translates to harmony.
Right, with a high-tone accent and a nasal hook. It's beautiful defiance, really, refusing to flatten the language for a standard keyboard. But let's pivot to how this manifests in the physical world. Slide 9 is titled Architecture of the Earth, the Hogan.
If the verb is the center of their language, the Hogan is the center of daily and spiritual life. They're built from organic materials, packed mud, heavy logs, bark designed to blend right into the desert.
It's like the ultimate form of biomimicry. But the sacred orientation is what's really striking. The entrance always faces east.
Always. It's a strict architectural rule to welcome the morning sun and daily blessings.
Imagine that. Every morning, the first thing you see is the sunrise. Your house is permanently aligned with the cosmos. It's so different from our modern houses facing like a concrete parking lot.
Right. And beyond shelter, the Hogan has a profound spiritual purpose. It's essential for family and ceremonies. When you're inside, you're symbolically standing inside the entire universe.
It totally erases the line between the secular and the sacred. You eat, sleep, and perform complex healing ceremonies in the exact same space. And speaking of creating things in that space, slide 10 is titled Art as Spirit, Weaving and Silvercraft.
This beautifully connects back to their pastoral history. First, weaving on the loom. These intricate geometric rugs are the artistic culmination of their sheep-herding culture.
And culmination is the right word. The patience required to raise sheep, shear them, spin yarn, dye it, and then weave a complex mathematical pattern entirely from memory. It's just devotion.
It literally is a physical manifestation of harmony. The weaver has to maintain perfect tension and balance, and that same pursuit is in their Silvercraft, which emerged in the 19th century.
Right, they mastered integrating heavy silver and turquoise. It's an internationally celebrated symbol of their identity today.
Yeah, and turquoise has ancient spiritual significance for them, representing water, sky, and health. So it's not just high-end art. These items carry specific blessings.
So from verbs to Hogans to silver, there is this common thread of striving for an elevated state. Which brings us to the final section. Slide 11 is titled Hozhó, the core philosophy.
This is the culmination of everything we've talked about today. Hozhó is the guiding ethical and spiritual worldview. It encompasses harmony, peace, beauty, and balance.
But the text defines it as the active, continuous pursuit of living in perfect equilibrium with nature, the cosmos, and each other.
Yeah, the key words are active and continuous. We tend to view peace as a static finish line. You know, like you retire and finally achieve peace.
Right, like sitting on a beach somewhere.
Exactly. But Hozhó understands the universe is dynamic. Maintaining balance requires constant, deliberate effort.
It's like riding a bicycle. You don't just achieve balance once and freeze. You have to keep pedaling and adjusting, or you fall over. If you get sick or fight with a neighbor, you're out of Hozhó and have to actively restore it.
It perfectly connects all their history. The 500-year migration, integrating Pueblo farming, surviving the long walk, it was all a generational search for and restoration of Hozhó.
It completely reframes what it means to be part of a living culture. Beauty isn't just a painting you look at, it's a verb. It's something you actively do and create.
It really demands that we look at the Diné not as tragic survivors, but as brilliant, active architects of their own reality.
It leaves you with so much to chew on. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought. Our modern world feels incredibly chaotic. But what if we adopted the concept of Hozhó? What if we viewed peace not as a passive escape, but as an active daily pursuit? How would that change the way you interact with your environment and face your own challenges today?
Thank you for watching until the end. We will continue to bring you many more languages from around the world. Please subscribe to our channel. See you next time on the Linglobe channel.